Hello, my name is Dominique Dennery, and I'm the host and producer of this dialogue on transformation. I'm here in beautiful Halifax, Nova Scotia, on a day that is sunny and bright, and I'm here with Cathy Carmody in her home, and we're going to start our interview and talk about your career, your life, your journey, and learn a little bit more about you. Cathy is a published author and also a social alchemist is how she likes to describe it, and we'll get into that a little bit more as well. And Cathy just turned 70 this year, and she's entering what she calls the third act in her life and playing out that part of her journey as a woman. So Cathy, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dominique, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this series.
Okay.
I'm thrilled to be here.
And I'm thrilled to have you. And it's very nice to have it in your home like this. It gives it a special touch. And so what I'd like to do is talk about who you are, introduce you to people, and your journey that got you to the point of entering yet again another transformation. And also then talk about the work that you've done and what you're planning next. And I'm hoping that women will see some similarities in their lives as well as be inspired by your unique way of creating a life that's authentic. So first, your journey from the beginning.
That's a huge agenda. That's a huge agenda, Dominique. From the beginning. Well, I was born in Prince Edward Island, which is close by, of course, and on a farm, and grew up in a small community for a good part of my life, and then went to high school, and then took a secretarial course. My mother wanted me to go to university, but you know, at that time I had met a guy who I fell madly in love with. So I finished secretarial school, organized a group, and went off to Banff, Alberta, and had a wonderful summertime. And then came back and began work as a secretary. Then I got pregnant, and then I got married in that order. Yes, in that order. And this was back in 1961. So then I worked for a number of years, but found it just wasn't satisfying. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I wanted more. So I decided to go to university, even though by that time I had 2 young boys, and a husband who, you know, drank a lot, as a lot of people did, still do in life. And so I thought, in order to make sure that in the future I had a really good life and the boys were well provided for, I'd go back to university. And in those days, getting a Bachelor of Business Administration was a good way to get into the workforce. So I did, and because I loved political life and the conversations around the future of our country, I also took political science. So I graduated from university, found a job in the provincial government, in a position training me to be a deputy minister, which I, over the years, rose to be the rank of equivalent to a deputy minister. I then, about 10 years into my work, I left my husband, or maybe earlier, I can't remember the exact details. I left my marriage, and then I, after a number of years, moved to Ottawa and worked there for a number of years with the federal government, and then moved back to the Maritimes, came to Halifax instead of the island, with a new life partner that I had found in Ottawa. And then shortly after coming here for 2 or 3 more years of the federal government, I took early retirement, and I left, created a consulting company with another wonderful friend I had, and then went back into workplaces supporting people in learning how to get along with each other. And worked on that for roughly 10 years, and then decided that I wanted to work almost exclusively with women, because I could see the potential of women, hiding in washrooms, having conversations over coffee and whatever, but never seeming to be able to find their voice, their public voice, to be able to speak out in the presence of others, especially authority. So I created my own company, Well Woman Inc., and then I focused on offering a number of leadership programs for women. And I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and I burnt myself out. And my physical health began to suffer. And so last year I said, had that, done that, been there, bought the t-shirt, and decided I'd had it. And so this year, the last few months, I've been taking time off. I've now turned 70, and now I'm embarking on a new adventure.
Yes.
So that's basically my journey.
And there's been these key points in your life where you went from being something that others expected you to be to changing completely to something else. You were following your own drummer, your own voice. Can you tell us a little bit about those points? What triggered the transformation?
Well, you know, as I went back to university, I began to really grow in quantum leaps. I really grew, and the children's father did not grow at the same time. Plus, we just had totally different interest. You know, it wasn't that he was a bad person. It was just that we really grew in different ways. I can remember lying in bed beside him one night, and I said to him, you know, I have this feeling that everything's falling apart and that there's not one thing I can do about it. And he never said anything. He was just really, really quiet. So he knew too. He knew that whatever we'd had for those 20 years, it just wasn't there anymore. There wasn't enough to sustain that relationship. And both, you know, I believe in a marriage, in a relationship, that you're there for two reasons. You're there to support each other and to challenge each other. And we weren't able to do that for each other in a way that was meaningful.
That was positive for either of you.
Exactly. So in my work, it was a feeling that there was something more, there was something bigger. Even though people would say, well, why would you want to leave your work? You know, you're at a senior level, you're secretary of the cabinet, and yet I knew there was just something more. It was sometimes, as I described in my book, I felt like I was a leaf and it was going whichever way the wind blew me.
As opposed to where you wanted to be.
Yeah, and I was doing, I learned very well how to please, how to satisfy the bosses and give them what they wanted. But after a while, it just wasn't enough. I felt myself really, my values and those of the organizations were just clashing all the time. I was too often felt I was pushing against what was going on at work. And I didn't want to be that anymore. I didn't want to always be pushing against.